Hello and welcome back to another episode of Sigdaddy's Wrestling Show. I'm your host, Skylar Sigdaddy Sigmund, and this is the WrestleMania 10 review. We'll be looking back at the 10th ever WrestleMania, emanating from Madison Square Garden. Jeremy J.O. has returned to the podcast and will be joining me on this week's episode. How are you doing, Jeremy?
I'm good. Glad to be back. Thanks for having me again.
No problem, man. Glad you could join me and watch this WrestleMania that was during a kind of a interesting time for WWE, because the business from this point forward, you look at WrestleMania 10 and then you go through the buy rates of each WrestleMania following it. Okay, so like this one did 420,000 pay-per-view buys. This one did. It was not bad. It's all right. But yeah, then it was down from the previous year, WrestleMania 9, by just about 10,000. But then after this, WrestleMania buy rates drop dramatically. There is a steep decline. So WrestleMania 11, 340,000 buys. So almost a 80,000 pay-per-view buy drop just in 1 year. And then WrestleMania 12 drops down to 290,000. And then 13, which, if you know, is the Austin Bret Hart match, submission match, the infamous blood on the face submission match, where Steve Austin's writhing in pain. That one, believe it or not, only got 237,000 pay-per-view buys.
Damn, so a lot of people missed out on that iconic moment.
Yeah, well, you know, somebody, a future WWE Hall of Famer, was starting to steal some people, some of those buys. Mr. Eric Bischoff in WCW, he stole a lot of those buys, I'm pretty sure, back then. That's when WCW, that 96 through about 98 period, I think, that 80-plus week reign of dominance for WCW Monday Nitro.
Right.
But yeah, that's a story you can tell a little bit tell at another time. But yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about WCW and how this, it's a weird point in time for WWE, as you'll see a lot of people leave not too long after this. But we start out the show. Actually, let's look at the date. March 20th, 1994, Madison Square Garden, attendance 19,444. I miss WrestleManias being in arenas. How about you?
Oh my God, 100%. Like, one of the best things about wrestling, sports entertainment, is the crowds. The crowds are part of the environment. It makes wrestling. And the reason wrestlers work their asses off is to get those reactions from the fans. So it's difficult to have those same feelings without getting the energy, the buzz from hearing the fans. There's no pop, no heat. It's just sad times.
Yeah. Oh, well, right now. Yeah. I was referring to like not just empty arena, but I was talking about like stadiums instead of in arenas. I like the arena WrestleManias better than the like outdoor WrestleManias. I just, supposedly, from what I've heard other wrestlers say this, but there's like an echo kind of.
Okay, I see what you're saying now, but I don't know. I kind of do like the outside giant stadiums. I don't know, because WrestleMania is the biggest show. It's one of the biggest shows when it's on. So, you know, for it to feel like the biggest show, it has to be one of the biggest arenas in front of the biggest crowds. But I can kind of see where the wrestlers are coming from. I definitely do, because in a smaller stadium, obviously it's smaller, but because it's smaller, I say that with quotes because it's still a lot of people. Mm-hmm. It's a little more intimate in a way.
Yeah, and I think that's what I think I like better is the intimacy of the fans kind of into it. I don't know why I used intimacy like that, but that's kind of odd. But it's more of an intimate experience because you got with the smaller arena, with not like a smaller arena, it's still 19,000 people in a jam-packed in a building, but the sound reverberates better off the ceiling of an arena but like in comparison to like an outdoor stadium. Because all the sound outside just goes up.
And it doesn't stay in the arena.
Yeah.
Where they're able to build off.
Yeah, I got you there. For the show, the commentary team, Vince McMahon and Jerry the King Lawler. We get the WrestleMania song to kick off the show. We also get shown the competitors for the double main event. And then we get Little Richard, the original wild man of rock and roll, with the choir in tow, singing "America the Beautiful," which was pretty dang good. In comparison to WrestleMania #1, if you ever watch that, which you can find it in the archives, my review of that, shameless plug. It's a little interesting because it's such a dramatic difference from WrestleMania #1 to WrestleMania 10, because we have Mean Gene singing the national anthem the first time, and he like speeds through it. Like it's the world's fastest national anthem. But then we have Little Richard here with all of his show business type stuff. It's a lot of fun. And it's kind of what we've seen over the years. It's evolved so much. We had that WrestleMania 24 one with John Legend singing it, which was pretty dang cool.
Yep.
But we get things kicked off at WrestleMania 10 with brother versus brother. The Rocket, Owen Hart, taking on Bret, the Hitman Hart. And the falling out for Bret and Owen began at Survivor Series with the Harts all on one team. So Owen's running off the ropes, and he hits Bret off the apron and into the guardrail. Owen then gets rolled up, and actually, Owen's the only Hart brother that gets eliminated after this match. In this match, and then they start arguing after the match, and then 2 weeks following Survivor Series, Owen lays out a challenge to his brother, and he's tired of being in the shadow of Bret, understandably so. We've seen this storyline time after time after time in wrestling. He wants his brother one-on-one, and then 1 week later, Bret says under no circumstances that he's not going to take on his brother. There's no way he's going to do it. And then Christmas weekend, Bret says they sat down to resolve things and didn't want to fight. Bret said he didn't want to fight Owen, and they're going to take the tag titles from the Quebecers at the Royal Rumble. And he says, united we stand, divided we fall. But during the tag match at the Royal Rumble, Owen reaches for the tag, but Bret can't make it because his knee is injured. Owen, after the match, kicks the knee out of Bret, kicks Bret's knee out from underneath him, starting this whole storyline. Really, and Owen believes Bret has held him down his whole entire life, and he's going to beat him. And then that's when he was being interviewed by Johnny Polo. If you recognize him, if you're watching WrestleMania, if you watch WrestleMania 10, that's Raven.
Yeah.
It's so...
I had to double check that one because I was like, wait a minute, that looks like him, but I wasn't sure, so I had to look up history of that, and yeah, that surprised me. I didn't catch it immediately.
Yeah, it's kind of an interesting. You see him a couple of times, I think, during the show. He's the manager in one of the later matches on this show, and then I put a question mark on my notes. I put, who is this ring announcer? So I find out just before the podcast starts, it's Bill Dunn. I have no clue who this guy is. But later on, we'll see Fink there for a moment or two. But really, this opening match, I don't know about you, but me, this is the greatest opener in WrestleMania history. The only one that even comes remotely close to this one is Daniel Bryan versus Triple H at WrestleMania 30. And that's still a step behind this one.
I know, the match was so good. I almost thought they did it a disservice of putting it first, as to open, because normally they save, they sprinkle the main events, the good matches throughout the show. But I think it was such a good match that it almost went perfectly first because, you know, the audience is still fresh, ready for WrestleMania start, full of energy still. So I think that definitely added to the environment of the match. But definitely, like, I agree, definitely a great opener.
Yeah, like I don't know how you could, it's like everything is like, okay, it's like how the heck do you top this after, it's like you're going on after this, you're like, well, I'm effed pretty much. But really, this is they Bret and Owen, this is the first time they've touched in a ring in WWE. I'm pretty sure, and it's kind of like a anything you can do, I can do better kind of match at certain points, especially in the beginning portions. Owen at one point does attack. He starts attacking the knee of Bret, and he goes like, he doesn't go like normal. He just goes full at it, like it. Because normally you see matches, they just go after, hit a couple of moves on it, like go after a limb for a few seconds. No, Owen is just full bore on this knee of Bret, and he continues to attack on this thing.
Right, because I know I thought it was good because that's what one of the things Bret was also really known for, his ring technicality, where he would target just a limb or something of his opponent just to weaken them for the match. So it was really interesting to see Owen do that to Bret, and just the chemistry between them was really great. And even though it's a story, brother versus brother, that, like you said, is used so many times to tell stories in wrestling, you got to think, since it's the Hearts, it's a story I want to hear. It's a great ingredients in this recipe.
Yeah, and it's just everything mixed as well, and you it's just such a natural thing, a brother versus brother rivalry. It's one getting overshadowed by the other, and this was the case with Bret and Owen. And later on, we saw that with Jeff and Matt Hardy to a similar degree, but not near to the in-ring level of these two guys, who were probably the best who were two of probably the best at the time, along with Shawn.
Oh, 100%. The reason, like you said, the reason the story is used so much is because it's relatable. Like, we've all there's siblings, and even people who don't have siblings but they have people that they feel they're in the shadow of. So it's a really good story for people to get into and to relate to. That's what fueled this feud so much.
And back to that thing where you said it, like it what was it? I don't know if you said it shouldn't have opened, but yeah, it's just I don't know. You have to just go out of your way to watch it because it's a freaking masterpiece. So here's the later portion of the match. So Bret's out there hits the rights. Owen misses. Bret grabs a sleeper. Then Owens gets a sneaky little low blow with a ref distracted. Owen locks in the sharpshooter on Bret in the middle of the ring. Bret then reverses it, locks in the sharpshooter himself. I always love that. Is one of my favorite counters. Like, I don't know why, but I always love seeing Bret pull out the sharpshooter out of something else. Like, well, he countered his brother's sharpshooter with his own. So that was really cool as well.
Right, because he almost pulled it out of nowhere. Like, it was a creative spot. I liked it too. I like it when it's kind of hard for me to explain why I like things like this, but it's when they counter it. I guess it's if it's the same move and they counter it and it's still the same move. Like, counted the sharpshooter into a sharpshooter. I don't know. I just think that's really awesome.
Yeah, and then you said I remember I got my train of thought back. So the disservice thing, it got a disservice by putting him on first, but it really told the story. It led to a bigger part of the story later on in the show when we found out. But
yeah.
But
I mean, yeah, with the hindsight of it is like, oh, that makes complete sense. But honestly, you could put this match at the main event. It was that good.
Yeah, and at the end, so Bret then after Owen gets to the ropes. Bret punched him in the corner. Bret goes for an Irish whip. Owen counters into one of his own, sends Bret to the corner. Owen charges. Bret gets his boot up. Bret then gets on Owen's shoulders, goes for a victory roll. Beautiful victory roll. counter by Owen as he stops his momentum and just pins him to get the upset victory over his brother at 20 minutes and 21 seconds. And yeah, that I love the finish of this because pretty much Bret had him. Bret had him where he wanted him, but Owen kind of caught him, and it kind of protected Bret in a way for later in the night.
Yeah. I also thought it protected him in the whole, like I said, we know now there was a further story into the pay-per-view. And to have Bret lose with just a pin like on his back definitely would have hurt the story a lot. And it also just protected Bret Hart as in terms of, it's Bret Hart. You don't want one of your top guys to lose that often. So I thought it was a really good really good way to finish the match.
Yeah, and I'm gonna grade this one, and you probably already know my grade for this one because this is probably this is up there with one of my favorite matches of all time. I'm gonna give it an A+, and it's unarguably the greatest opener in WrestleMania history. It told a story just like Daniel Bryan, but it was the first one. It was the first one because Daniel Bryan had to do the same sort of thing, except he had to win his first match. But this told a great story later on. But unarguably the greatest opener in WrestleMania history. Great story told throughout the match. In-ring psychology was freaking top-notch. And then also the attack of the back by Owen as well. It was just Bret selling, Owen selling, just everything. It was just a perfect mixture of everything. It's just a masterclass of professional wrestling and one of the greatest matches in WrestleMania history, in my opinion.
Yep, that's well said. Because it's the Harts we're talking about, Bret and Owen. Talk about, like you said, ring technicality, ring awareness, their storytelling, their selling, chemistry, A+ all around.
And then after that, we get Todd Pettengill, with Owen Hart backstage, and Owen feels great, and he's now the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be. And he says he finally got the recognition he deserved and doesn't believe Bret has any hope of winning the title, the world title, later in the night. And then we get shown Coliseum videos, WrestleMania moment from WrestleMania 2. It's the Battle Royal. And then we get to the ring announcer, which is the president of the Hair Club for Men, and also a client, Cy Sperling. No clue who this guy is, so didn't know. Talked about his new creation, though, the Fink. So Howard Finkel, the late Howard Finkel, his hairline didn't exist. He did not have hair most of the time you saw him, but he had a full head of jet black hair here. And then Howard does introduce this next match as the ring announcer. And it's Bam Bam Bigelow and his main squeeze, Luna Vachon, versus Doink, Ray Apollo, and Dink the Clown. And this is just a comedy match. This is kind of a cool down from the high we got from Bret and Owen.
Right, yeah. And when I was watching the match, I kept that in mind because, they hold it to the standards of what Bret versus Owen was. But it was an all right match. Definitely, like I said, definitely a cool down that was needed because you don't want to give the audience too much too soon. Don't want to burn them out.
You want to hype them up, but then you want to have them come back down for a second. It's like a roll. Eric Bischoff said this. It's like a roller coaster. It goes up. The show should go up and down, kind of, and then it's eventually building up to that main event of the show, because that should be the complete apex of the show.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so a lot of comedy spots in this match. A lot of Dink avoiding Bam Bam and Luna, but late in the match, Doink misses with the leg drop off the top. Big clothesline from Bam Bam, runs off the ropes, hits Dink off the apron. Then Doink goes for a back suplex. Bam Bam falls on top for a near fall. And then Bam Bam heads up top and connects with the flying headbutt. And it is over. And I thought this was okay. Like you said, it was a cool down from the pie we got from Bret versus Owen. And I thought this was purely filler, but it made sense in the spot it was. And also, I noticed this. Some of the spots were very obvious that they were going to miss. Like that leg drop from the top so Bam Bam's set up. Like he's set up diagonal to the top rope. And it's like, there is no way Doink's landing a leg drop there. It was just, that was a little too obvious for me. And, but still, it was all right comedy match. I'm going to give it a C. What do you say, Jo?
A C. I gave it a B-. Like I said, I wasn't gonna go off of. I graded it as not as a match, but as a comedy match. So, did it achieve what it tried to do? I'd say yeah. Like there's comedy match. There's some spots that I thought were kind of funny. It's definitely funny seeing Doink because, again, as a newer fan, never really saw a lot of him. Just heard the legend of Doink the Clown, so being able to watch him wrestle was really cool. But not a bad match, B-.
And then after the match, we get Dink picking a fight with Bam Bam and Luna post-match. So Bam Bam misses with the splash, but Luna hits Dink with it. And I don't think that was meant to happen because Dink didn't sell it at all. But then like we mentioned earlier, like we mentioned before we came onto the show, we get a fake Bill Clinton here in the building to act like he was the president, which is it was just incredibly weird and felt completely out of place at WrestleMania. I don't know about you, but that's my thoughts.
It felt so strange. And they sold it, right? They didn't say it was an impersonator or anything like that. They just called him Mr. President. And they treated him as such. I'm pretty sure I heard the presidential theme when they introduced him. Mm-hmm. And it was just so strange.
It was so weird. Just felt, I'm like, this doesn't feel like it's a WrestleMania type of thing. I know it was a really good looking impersonator, though. I'll give them that. Whoever they recruited was a pretty good impersonator of Bill Clinton.
Right, definitely was. Sounded like him and everything. Looked like him just a little bit. But why though? Like he wasn't involved in any of the matches or anything like that. He was just there.
Yeah, he was just sitting there in the crowd amongst the people in his own little special area. You saw IRS there later, but
his presidential box.
Yeah, whatever that means in MSG. But after that, we get another WrestleMania moment. WrestleMania 3, Hogan and Andre, the infamous slam in the Pontiac Silverdome. Iconic WrestleMania moment. Also, another great WrestleMania match happened at that show. Ricky the Dragon Steamboat and Randy Macho Man Savage, considered one of the greatest WrestleMania matches of all time. But after that, we get Randy Macho Man Savage against Crush with Mr. Fuji ringside in a Falls Count Anywhere match. Savage jumps him from the start. And this is mainly just a big giant brawl. And the weird, this is the most confusing stipulation I think I've seen. It's such a weird Falls Count Anywhere to me is just, you pin him anywhere inside the arena, and that's the match. But no, here you have a different look at the Falls Count Anywhere match. You have to pin your opponent. You have to get back in the ring. And if your opponent doesn't get back in the ring before the 60 seconds, you're declared the winner, which is just incredibly weird in my opinion. It just kind of took away some of the goodness of this match.
So you have a stipulation with the person who gets pinned has 60 seconds to get back into the ring. The thing that made me think was Falls Count Anywhere. They're intense, no disqualification matches, and it shows the toughness of some of the wrestlers who are in these matches. But if these wrestlers are getting pinned like consistently throughout the match, it just doesn't make them look strong.
No, it doesn't. Because like Savage got pinned like literally about 20 seconds into the match. After it got dropped on the guardrail, I'm like, what the freaking heck? Savage doesn't get pinned like that easily, ever.
No, never. It just makes them look. It doesn't make them look good. if you're planning out a match like this, you can still have the match play out the same way you want to, like all the spots and everything where you guys want to go. Just don't add the pinfalls, and it would still play out the same.
It would build up more drama if they would kick out of stuff, I think.
Yeah, I guess that does make sense. I guess it does add another layer of he kicks out twice. Will he kick out of the next one? I do see where you're coming there, but it just doesn't make them look strong.
Yeah, I know. I agree. I agree with that. I thought Savage got pinned way too quickly in this one. And the ending of the match was kind of weird because Savage does hit the elbow drop. He throws Crush out of the ring, pins him, but then Crush gets water dumped on him by Mr. Fuji, which that was kind of smart. I thought that was nice. But then Crush gets back in the ring, and then they eventually it spills out into the crowd and then the backstage area through the showers and everything. It's just a big giant brawl. And eventually Crush gets hung up by like some cable by his feet. And he's unable to escape after Savage pins him. And then Savage gets to the ring and wins as Crush is not able to answer the 60-second count. But yeah, I was not a big fan of this type of Falls Count Anywhere match. I thought it was fine though. But the finish, I like the finish somewhat. Mm-hmm. I just didn't like the way they got to the finish. That was the one thing. And I on all honesty, I'm gonna give it a C+.
C+. I also liked the finish. I thought it was really creative. I always found that I like it when they have finishes that involve the environment like that. And I'll get into some of that later. You can probably guess what I'm talking about. But I actually ended up giving it a B. So looks like I liked it just a little bit more. Again, the only takeaway was I just thought that 60 seconds after the pinfall was a weird, strange thing to add to the match.
It was an unnecessary layer added to the match, I felt like.
Yeah.
But after that, we get Pettengill back with the fake President Clinton, Erwin R. Shyster. And Clinton, they have a conversation. They've been having their issues, but they think they'll be able to work things out. And then he talks to Erwin, says he's doing a good job, says something tax related. And then they send us to a video package, taking us back to FanFest weekend. Doink was in a dunk tank. People were wrestling, action figures, autographs, opportunity to call a match. Lots of fun stuff at these FanFest events. It's grown immensely since that time from 94. It's a whole freaking week dedicated to fan-related stuff now.
Yeah. Saw the videos, saw the highlights of that, and it definitely looked like it was a good time. Definitely shows how much WWE has grown in terms of what it's able to do now and what it wants to do for its fans.
Yeah, and since like I looked at their they posted something today, WWE did, and it was a not WrestleMania, but their YouTube page has over 75 million subscribers now.
That's crazy.
If I'm correct, let me look at it real quick. Let me double check. I had to make sure I'm 100% correct on this because I don't want to be looking like a big old dummy. Yep, it's 75 million subscribers now. My freaking goodness, that's freaking insane. The global reach is incredible. But after that, we get Randy Macho Man Savage celebrating in the Paramount Theater. It's the overflow crowd from MSG. And then we get a WrestleMania 4 moment. And then we get Leilani Kai versus Alundra Blaze for the WWF Women's Championship. And this match doesn't get a whole lot of time. They have to rush. They have to go pretty quickly. But I thought they accomplished a lot in the 3 minutes. Well, it says 3 minutes and 20 seconds they had. So I feel like they got a lot accomplished in that short amount of time.
I would agree. Definitely noticed it was a very, very quick match. But it it wasn't noticeable to the fact where I was watching it and felt like it was quick. How do I put this? Like it engaged me. It definitely engaged me where I was watching it the entire time, and it only felt quick because after the match ended, I was like, "Wait, the match is over already?" But I was engaged enough that I didn't really think about the time until I really realized once the match was over how short of a match it was.
Yeah, it felt incredibly short. And actually, if you remember, if you're a WrestleMania buff, Leilani Kai was in the first ever WrestleMania. Actually, she faced off against Wendy Richter in the women's championship, ladies championship match at WrestleMania #1. So it was kind of cool to see her about 9 years later here against Alundra Blaze. And Alundra Blaze, I gotta say this, she was so far ahead of her time, like in terms of wrestling ability. If she would have came around today, she would have been a freaking huge star.
Oh, absolutely. I was watching some of the stuff. When I was watching the match and seeing some of the stuff she was able to do, she would have fit in perfect with the WWE Women's Revolution because one of those trailblazers early on that showed what women wrestlers could do, and she would have fit in just fine in today's modern era.
Yeah. So she had Hurricane Rana into this match. In this match, she hit I got her near fall after an Irish whip. We had a couple of snapmares with the hair pull by Kai. Kai throws Blaze by her hair. Double underhook suplex by Leilani Kai for a near fall. Then Blaze ducks a running clothesline, boots in the corner, whips Kai into the ropes, spinning wheel kick. That was an impressive spinning wheel kick. Suplex for a near fall, then a snapmare from Blaze for a near fall. Kai then sends Blaze into the ropes. Blaze ducks a right, hits a beautiful bridging German to get the win at 3 minutes and 20 seconds. But yeah, some of the offense Blaze hit in this match was super impressive. You see that similar spinning wheel kick from Peyton Royce, and you've seen it from Booker T before too.
Mm-hmm.
But overall, I'm going to give the match a B-. They didn't get a lot of time, but they did the best they could with the time. I just thought that Alundra Blaze could have really thrived in today's wrestling climate.
Very similar thoughts on the match. Also gave it a B-. They worked with what they had, and they worked it really well.
And then we get a WrestleMania moment from WrestleMania 5, followed by the second title match of the show, the WWF Tag Team Championship match, Men on a Mission. Mabel and Mo. Mabel, you know him more so as Viscera, the world's largest love machine, or Big Daddy V, as he was later called, and Mo, with Oscar taking on the Quebecers, Jacques Rougeau and Pierre Ouellet. And then they're accompanied by Johnny Polo, a.k.a. Raven. I got to make a point here before. So Pierre Ouellet for the Quebecers is still wrestling to this day. He wrestles in Ring of Honor as PCO.
That is a very long career he's having right now.
Yeah, he had a resurgence a couple of years ago. I think it started at Joey Janela's Spring Break. He had a match with Walter, and they just beat the living crap out of each other. Like it was a lot of chops. If you've seen the Walter chops on YouTube, everybody, I don't know how anybody takes any of those chops, because he sounds like he's about to freaking. It sounds like it's gonna kill somebody and stop their heart.
Cave your chest in.
Yeah, and he's actually PCO about a year or two ago. I was like, well, it's about a year, 3 months or so ago. He actually won the Ring of Honor World Championship held it for a couple of months, and he's in his 50s.
Longevity, you love to see it.
Yeah, I think he left the business for a little bit, then came back, and then he's had this career resurgence. But in this match, Oscar wraps Men on a Mission out. Then we cut to Todd Pettengill with Rhonda Shear. The Heartbreak Kid interrupts, wants a photo with her, but missed the man, the myth, the legend, the late Burt Reynolds interrupts. And then we don't even get really to see the Quebecers entrance. They just jump men on a mission from behind to start. This match goes about 7 minutes and 41 seconds. I thought throughout this match, everything was fine. I think it was a decent tag team match. I just didn't really like the finish. I hated the finish. Honestly, I don't know. What do you think?
Definitely the finish. The finish was that part of the match that I had most to say because, like I say, it was an average match in my opinion, but it was just it felt sloppy. It just really felt sloppy because it felt rushed. Also,
yeah, it only got less. They got less than 8 minutes in this match, but I gotta say, one impressive move. There was King. He would be later known as King Mabel too, but Mabel hits a freaking jumping, spinning heel kick. That was freaking unbelievable.
Didn't know he had that kind of moves in him.
Yeah, well, he was very young at that time, but I'm like, holy crap! I've never seen him pull something out like that. But I was super impressed because Owen Hart also does that kind of spinning heel kick move, and he hits it crisp. I think he hit it crisper than anybody though. But Mo does hit that at one point in this match. Was it later in the match? I think it was. Yeah, he did. Then it was a short arm clothesline by Mabel to tag into Mo. I think it's called the Whoomp. There it is. It's kind of a double team splash on one of the Quebecers. Polo distracts the ref. Oscar tries to yank him off the apron. And then another accidental shot to his partner by Jacques. And then they hit the move on the floor, the double team splash on the outside. The Quebecers then get counted out at 7 minutes and 41 seconds. And that finish I just didn't like. I thought it was okay tag team match wise. I'm going to give it a C+. But the bigger problem I had with this was the aftermath of the match, because we had men on a mission celebrating with the belts, even though they didn't win the belts, because you can't win the belts in WWE by disqualification or count out. So I just thought that was weird. And I'm like, why celebrate when you didn't even win the titles actually?
Right. Because I don't know if they were trying to do a heel thing with, even though we didn't win the belts, we won, so we're going to hold the belts. But it was just, because of that, it was sloppy. It almost made them...
It made them look dumb.
Yeah, I agree. And if you didn't know... I'll put it this way, if you didn't know that was the rule, you would have thought they won. But obviously, since there's the rule, they didn't, so it didn't make sense for them to want to celebrate. And for my grading, decent match overall, just the ending was the worst part of it easily. I gave it a C.
Fair enough. After that, we get Rhonda Shear introduced as the guest timekeeper for the first WWF Championship match of the night. Technically, kind of almost like a double main event. New Kids on the Block member Donnie Wahlberg is the guest ring announcer for this one. It's Yokozuna defending his WWF Championship against. Well, he's accompanied by Mr. Fuji and Jim Cornette. He's taking on Lex Luger, and if you remember, Lex Luger slammed Yokozuna on a military ship back, I think, back in the summer, but we have that. It's Lex Luger versus Yokozuna for the WWF Championship. Mr. Perfect is the special guest referee, and Yokozuna comes into this match weighing in at a very big weight. Very, very big weight. It's a lot. 568 pounds. The man is massive. And, Yokozuna just looked huge here.
He looked massive. I'm pretty sure Yokozuna, during his time at the WWE, to this day, he's still one of the biggest wrestlers in terms of weight. Easily.
I think he is honestly the biggest one in weight ever. If you watch have you watched the WWE Icon documentary on Yokozuna?
I have not yet, no.
Oh, it's great. It's a very well done documentary. And and if you didn't know, Yokozuna is the part of the Anoa'i family. And you know how that family rolls. The Rock, Roman Reigns, Rikishi, all these guys. But really, the one that broke through broke the barrier, broke the mold for them was Yoko. Yoko was the one that was the first one to get into main event status in that family.
Paved the way for, like I said, all those big names.
Yep, the head of the table, Roman Reigns, The Rock. The list goes on and on. Jimmy, Jey Uso, Rikishi. The list is enormous at this point, honestly, with how many Samoan stars there are in WWE. But yep, Yoko was the one that broke the mold. And really, this match was a snoozer. Complete and utter snoozer, because literally nothing happened for 90% of the match. Nothing happened. Literally, it was Yoko just wrecking Lex and just holding on to this nerve hold for about 5 or 6 minutes of the 14-minute match they had.
So yeah, 90%. You're right about the 90% because nothing eventful happened until close to the very end.
It was
no. I mean, do I felt they could have done more? Absolutely, but I always try to think. I always wondered if it played more of a part to, again, like the story later on. So I don't know if that was the plan, but I don't know.
It could have been argued they were saving something for later, I guess, in a way, but literally nothing happened. It was mostly nothing in this match, but later in the match, Lex fires up, hits the back elbows, ducks clothesline, needs a belly-to-belly from Yoko. Then Yoko goes back to the turnbuckle pad. He exposed earlier in the match, tries to ram Luger's head into the metal. Lex blocks it and slams Yoko's head into it. Then Lex with a boot in the face in the corner, clothesline, another one, takes Yoko off his feet, scoop slam by Lex. Then Lex hits him with the big forearm. And Lex puts Cornette in the ring, yanks him, throws him into the ring. And then Lex beating up Fuji as well. Lex covers Yoko, but Perfect, he tries to wake up Cornette and then tries to wake up Fuji. And Lex pushes Perfect. Perfect DQs him at, 14 minutes and 40 seconds. And this match was just a whole lot of nothing, pretty much. 80% of the match, 90% of the match was a lot of nothing. And the finish was just kind of a big fart in the wind.
Say it was Mr. Perfect's heel turn. Could they have done a little more? I mean, it was a heel turn. He turned into the bad guy when he DQ'd Lex Luger for I want to say no reason. Like,
he pushed him.
Mr. Perfect, you're the ref. Do your job. There's a pinfall. Count it.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't doing that. So Lex Luger was in his right to get upset, and he pushed him. Yeah, technically, if you want to get technical in the rules, you're not allowed to touch the ref.
You know WWE rules. They're very freaking all over the place. You don't know. There's no consistency to WWE rules. But
right, fair point.
But I gotta give Mr. Perfect props on this. His outfit was freaking dope. The freaking pins, he had the pinstripes all the way down. He had from shirt to pants. I'm pretty sure they had like Zubaz pants on. But it was a sick fit.
It definitely was. For definitely one of the better dressed guest referees I've seen.
And for grading, I'm going to grade this match. I'm going to give it a D+. What say you?
I wasn't as bad. I gave that one a C- because I thought the ending was interesting, at least. So I just at least gave it a D, C+-ish range.
Mm-hmm. I think I said C-. You said, yeah, you said C-.
C-, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I got a D+, and then after that we get Penn Gill with Perfect. Perfect explains himself, and then Lex comes back super angry as expected. They get in a big argument. Officials there to separate them. And you know what I see in the background there? A little Easter egg, a young Tony Chimmel.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, Tony Chimmel was in the background. If you watch WrestleMania 10 back, And that little scrum, you see Tony Chimmel, and you all know him for being the man for announcing Edge out, doing the rated R superstar, that kind of thing. But I thought that was a neat little Easter egg. Finding these people that have worked for WWE for ages.
I missed that one. That is really interesting. That's dope.
Yeah, because he's just sitting there in the background. Chimmel is. But then we get another WrestleMania moment, WrestleMania 7 this time. It's Harvey Whippleman then gets introduced. Harvey calls Finkel a bunch of names. The only difference is that he has hair on his head. I think trying to rip the shirt of Finkel. Then Finkel pushes Whippleman down. Atom Bomb comes out there to confront Finkel. Earthquake jumps him from behind. And then we get a match unofficially. I was like, oh, crap, we're in a match now. Okay. Belly-to-belly suplex after a club to the back by Earthquake. Power slam by Earthquake. Then Quake jumps around, causing the ring to shake and the earth to move. He runs off the ropes and then sits on Atom Bomb to get the 1, 2, 3 in about 32 seconds. I'm going to give it a D. Not much of a match. Just a pure freaking squash.
I also gave it a D because there was not much to grade on.
Yeah,
so
it was just like came out of the freaking blue. It's like, oh, shit. It's like, oh, bleep, we're having a match now. Okay. And then we get Yokozuna backstage with Pettengill, and then he has to admit that Yoko was laying in the ring. That's what Pettengill says. And Cornette gets on the mic. It says, who has the belt? And Cornette cuts a promo. Mr. Perfect did a good job of officiating, compliments him there. And he says, the question is, will Bret come out with a healthy body and his career intact after the match? I thought this was a really good promo from Cornette. He went on a little too long with it, I thought, but I thought it was pretty good. He says he's going to chew Bret and spit him out. And then we get the bonsai from Yokozuna, which was pretty dope. But I like the promo from Cornette here. I just thought he went like, if we had cut it off about 15, 20 seconds earlier, I thought it was a fantastic promo.
Yeah, I mean, he got his point across early on in the beginning, but after that, you were just kind of feels like he kind of could have wrapped it up after.
We all just got to the point where it's like, okay, we just need Yoko to say bonsai, and that's it. But then we get another WrestleMania moment from WrestleMania 8. And then we get one of the big ones, one of the greatest ladder matches you'll ever see. Well, one of the first ladder matches you'll ever see. One of the first ladder matches you would see actually in WWE. Yep. It's the first ladder match in WrestleMania history, but it's the second ladder match in WWE history. The first one took place in 1992 when Bret Hart took on defeated Shawn Michaels to retain the IC title. And interesting little tidbit from NXT this week, Shawn Michaels brought a ladder in the ring to show what kind of match Jordan Devlin and Santos Escobar were having for the NXT Championship at the upcoming TakeOver, which I thought that was a cool little thing they did on the show.
Very fitting. Why not have one of the pioneers of it say it?
Yeah, it's Shawn Michaels versus Razor Ramon in a ladder match for the Undisputed Intercontinental Championship. So leading up to this, Jack Tunney initially stripped HBK of the belt, but HBK didn't acknowledge it. Razor then won it in a battle royal, eliminating Rick Martel to win it. Eventually led to this Undisputed Intercontinental Championship ladder match. And this is it's for being one of the first ladder matches ever. This is a fantastic ladder match. Really sets the bar from it. And it's stuff you'll see in highlight reels from that you'll see it in highlight reels for forever. It's some of the stuff you see Shawn hit in this match that just stands the test of time, really.
Oh, definitely, for sure. Like you talked about the highlight reels, I still see, again, what I told you before about only seeing as a newer wrestling fan, not watching a lot of the old stuff, only seeing highlights. These are the highlights I'm telling you about. Highlights from this match I do remember as being some of the first ladder matches that you see. And it was a great pioneer in that. It showed obviously there's some spots that they didn't do because they probably didn't think of it at the time, but it showed the potential that these ladder matches could have.
And there was a lot of innovation in this match. And there's spots in this match that I haven't seen now. Like, there's spots from this match I haven't seen in ladder matches recently. Like, one of the spots was, well, that splash off the top of the ladder, that's just iconic. That's what you'll see in video packages forever. But also, that ladder match, so when Shawn, he grabs the ladder, he stands up in the corner, and he kind of rides the ladder into a splash onto Razor. He's like, has the ladder in front of him and splashes Razor with it. I haven't seen that spot since then.
That's true. They have not used that spot. And it also, I think a great thing that I thought about was it showed that sometimes less is more, because what they use one ladder the entire match, and some ladder matches these these days it's not even just a ladder match anymore. It
turns into a TLC match pretty much.
It's a TLC match. Even I guess Money in the Bank gets a pass because there's 6 people, so there might have to be more ladders, but one ladder the entire match, and they did so much with it.
And they utilize it to the best. They used it for a baseball slide. They set it up in the corner, throwing Shawn off of it. Razor hits the concrete hard at one point in this. But Shawn also gets his backside exposed during this as well. But he does a nice recovery, hitting an elbow drop off of it.
But, nice little plus for the female fans in the arena there that night.
Yeah, you heard a lot of woo kind of stuff on this. During this match with that. And we had an early look at Sweet Chin Music before it was even called Sweet Chin Music during this. Because he ducked a clothesline from Razor at one point and hit the super kick, but Vince doesn't really acknowledge it as what he didn't even call the move really. He just kind of, I don't know. It was kind of hard to explain what Vince did there because I don't even remember him hardly saying anything after that super kick.
I know, it was such a weird thing to see.
It was like it was almost like a transitional spot.
Yeah, before the super kick became the super kick, and because you think of super kick, you think of Sweet Chin Music, you think of Shawn Michaels, and every time he uses it, one of the commentators is always going to say Sweet Chin Music or super kick and acknowledge it because it's Shawn Michaels. But it was definitely weird to see him do it and then not even say anything about it.
Yeah, it was kind of, well, I think at that time he was still using like the teardrop back suplex as his finisher. I think that was still his finisher at the time, and I think eventually he adopted Sweet Chin Music. But I love the match as a whole. It's fantastic. It's something you have to go out of your way to watch. But I make one comment also. Razor was in fantastic shape here.
Oh, he looked amazing.
He looked freaking ripped. I'm like, goodness gracious, this guy he wasn't a small dude by any stretch. He was a big man, and he was freaking ripped at this point. In all honesty,
tall, and he looked good.
Yeah, he looked fantastic. Razor at one point later on in the match hip tosses Shawn off the ladder. This is the ladder portion of the match. The ladder twists and collapses. Razor climbs up. Michaels drop kicks the ladder. That's the one little nitpick I have in this match, as the ladder really didn't move, and then Razor just fell off. That was the only off spot in this entire match. But other than that, it's just a freaking masterpiece. After that, HBK tips the ladder onto Razor, which was incredibly smart from a psychology standpoint, I thought. HBK gets Razor up, whips him into the ropes. Razor ducks the clothesline, but HBK hits him with the Sweet Chin Music as we referenced earlier. And then HBK grabs the ladder, climbs the second rope, hits the splash with the ladder in hand. And then he sets up the ladder over Razor's prone body. Razor shakes the ladder, then shoulder blocks it, knocking HBK off the ladder and crotch first onto the top rope. But then HBK gets his leg tangled into the rope. Razor climbs, HBK gets his leg out, but then you notice he also gets his arm trapped as well. And then Razor grabs the title and is the undisputed Intercontinental Champ at 18 minutes and 47 seconds. I absolutely loved the finish of this match. What did you think?
Oh, I absolutely loved it. because I alluded to it earlier. I love it when they have these finishes that involve the environment in some way, and I just think finishes like that where they get caught or trapped, it just, I don't know.
You
It's
feel a
just
sense of urgency there.
right.
It's like,
Yeah, that's a perfect way to put it. Urgency. Because if it was just he hit Razor's Edge on Shawn and he was just on the ground and he was climbing the ladder, there's like, oh, it's over. But you would have kept thinking, oh, is he going to get out? Is he going to be able to get out? And first of all, I think it should be said that those wrestling ropes are tight, and sometimes they're not that easy to move. So to be able to get your foot caught in it like that, I think is really impressive for Shawn Michaels to be able to do.
mm-hmm. And the selling in this match by Shawn at the end especially was great. And I thought this was honestly fantastic ladder match. Our expectations, since we've seen so many ladder matches in our lifetimes, I'm not sure if it holds up to today, but honestly, I thought this was fantastic and so innovative for the time. And I loved it. It's not like the spot fest you'll see today. There was actually some thought and some psychology put into this, in-ring psychology put into this. I honestly, other than that one spot, it was pretty much a perfect match, and I'm gonna give it an A+.
I would agree wholeheartedly. I also gave it an A+. Ending was really great. Like I said, in terms of today's ladder matches, ring psychology and storytelling versus a spot fest, it was the ring psychology and storytelling, but it worked. Again, they showed less is more, and they did a good job of doing that. Great match, A+.
Yeah, just a wonderful wrestling match, and you gotta go out of your way to see this one, the ladder match with Razor and Shawn, and also the opener with Bret and Owen from this WrestleMania. If that's the only thing you watch from this WrestleMania, it is totally worth it. Just go out of your way and watch it. Then we head back to the dressing room where the head shrinkers, IRS, Rick Martel, Fatu, which is Rikishi, Jeff Jarrett, and Alpha, I think, are all arguing over who's going to be the captain for this tag team match. And actually, I was a little confused. I'm like, what the heck happened here? So I looked it up. Apparently, there was supposed to be a 10-man tag before the main event, but it got scrapped after HBK and Razor Ramon went way over on time. Like they went. I
did also hear about that.
He went about 10 minutes over, because I think initially they were supposed to only go 10 minutes, which I'm like, I don't know how you do a good ladder match in 10 minutes. You got to have at least 15 or so. But yeah, HBK went over on time here, and people weren't too happy about it backstage.
And from what I also read up on, the officials were in the ref's ear the entire time, telling them, like, hey, you have to end this match. But apparently Shawn Michaels and Razor Ramon said, screw that, we're going to have a good match, and just kept going. And I just think that is so funny.
It's better that they did, because we wouldn't have, this ladder match wouldn't still be talked about today, honestly. But yeah, the 10-man tag was supposed to be the smoking gun. So Barton, Billy Gunn, Bob Holly, Tatanka, and the 1-2-3 Kid, also known as X-Pac, taking on the Head Shrinkers, IRS, Jeff Jarrett, and Rick the Model Rick Martel. That ended up happening on Raw. Then we get
the kayfabe. I think
what were you saying?
I was just gonna say the kayfabe way they decided to cut the match, I thought was pretty clever. I'm not gonna lie, I like that, how they kind of decided to cancel it just because they couldn't decide who was the captain. It kind of made sense with who was there, so I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, and then we get another Bill Clinton interview. This time it's Ted DiBiase saying if we can agree on one thing, it says everybody's got a price for the $1 Million Man. Then Clinton's kind of like, I don't want to get into politics right now. I just want to enjoy the wrestling show. I could have really done without all these Bill Clinton segments on this entire show.
100%. It almost added nothing to the show.
It literally added like zero. But then we get highlight WrestleMania moment from WrestleMania number 9 just a year prior. And then we get the main event, which was actually technically the main event of the year before's WrestleMania at WrestleMania 9. It was Bret Hart taking on the WWF champ Yokozuna with Mr. Fuji and Jim Cornette. And the special guest official this time is none other than Roddy Piper. And then we get a video package hyping up the main event. And man, video packages have really evolved over time. Like you see Bret Hart's video package, and then you can see a separate video package for Yokozuna here. Yeah, it just shows how far we've come along in technology since then.
Right, because weren't both of the video packages just like highlights of their matches? Like sometimes not even with each other.
Yeah, it was just random highlights. It seemed like.
Right, but now video packages today add to the feud is a great way to catch up on the feud if you forget or just starting to watch the match. But yeah, way better today.
Yeah, it's way better today. And the year prior, I just talked about it a moment ago, but WrestleMania 9, Yoko retained the title after Fuji threw salt in the face of Bret the Hitman Hart. But then right after Yoko wins the WWF title, he loses it. Immediately after, Hogan comes out, challenges Yoko, and he wins it about 20 seconds. And then Hogan would hold the title for about 70 days before losing it to Yoko. And then Yoko would go over, and then Hogan would, a little bit later on, go to WCW. We'll talk about that briefly after we look at this match. But Yoko at this point had a 9-month reign with the WWE Championship, WWF Championship at the time. And guest timekeeper, Kelly from Beverly Hills, 90210. I think her name was Jackie Gard, if I'm correct. And then we had the guest ring announcer, Mr. Burt freaking Reynolds. And when he introduces the special guest referee, Burt does, freaking Piper comes out to a freaking enormous pop. It's an insane freaking pop. 9 years later, he was at the first WrestleMania. Still, like he was a heel at that time, but he's gained so much goodwill with the fans at this point that he's just super over.
Couldn't buy a boo if he tried to.
Yeah, even as it's like almost like a Flair-like sympathy he has with the fans, pretty much. At this point in his career, he's deep into his career at this point, actually. Mm-hmm. And then we get Bret coming out afterward. He's limping out, selling that injury from the prior match. And this match is mostly Yoko dominating for the most part in this. But Bret has these little hope spots where he comes back for about 10 seconds or so before Yoko hits a big move on him. And then kind of goes back to his offense. Eventually, Yoko and Roddy get into it. Yoko hits the leg drop on Bret, the back of his head. Yoko asks Bret to get up. Yoko then throws Bret out of the ring. Roddy's counting him out. Bret beats the 10 count. Then Yoko attacks Bret in the corner. Yoko bites Bret, keeps on the offense, whips Bret into the corner, goes for the big hip strike in the corner, misses. Second rope bulldog by Bret for a near fall. Bret then heads to the second rope, forearm drop for another one. Bret hits some rights, running clotheslines, takes Yokozuna down. Then Yoko kicks out at 2 once again. Bret hops off the second rope, but Yoko beautifully catches him and hits a fantastic belly-to-belly suplex on him. Drags Bret to the corner, goes for the bonsai drop, loses his balance, and hits his head on the mat. Bret covers him and wins the championship at 10 minutes and 38 seconds. I forgot to mention earlier on, Roddy knocked out Jim Cornette with a right hand outside of the ring after Corny got involved, pulling Bret's leg out of the ring. But yeah, Yoko loses his balance off the top rope, and Bret pins him and wins the championship at 10:38. I thought this was smart in a way as it protected Yokozuna. It just Yoko just kind of slipped on a banana peel and lost pretty much. Because you notice right after the match, if you watch it back on the network, well, it's going to be on Peacock now here in a few weeks. It's already on Peacock, but the WWE Network will end in a few weeks. But if you watch it back, Yoko just kind of loses his balance, and then Bret pins him. But Yoko kicks out like right after the 3 count, which kind of protected him in a way. I thought this had some nice momentum switches throughout. I wish Yoko would have actually went after the leg of Bret during it, since Bret had been selling the leg the whole entire night.
Right. And I think Yokozuna dominating most of it is still great storytelling, because obviously Bret had an awesome match with Owen, is beaten, really did a great job of selling that leg, as you see, like just limping to the ring. Like you don't see a lot of that today, and so it would make sense for him to not be able to control most of the match. Of course, it's Bret Hart, so he still has some fight in him. So we saw some of that during the match. But I agree. Like you would think Yokozuna saw him limping towards the ring. I mean, he jumped him as soon as he got into the ring, so you would think he'd try targeting that. But you really didn't see a lot of that during the match.
No, and I thought that could have made the match a little bit better. And I understand it's pretty much like a David versus Goliath battle in the match. But I thought that the finish was smart in a way. I was going to give it a B minus. What's your thoughts?
I gave it a B. I just really like the storytelling in it. And Bret Hart, probably one of the best sellers in WWE history, did a great job of telling that story of he's hurt and this is going to be a tough match. And it showed. Like I said, he did not get a lot of offense in throughout most of the match, just a few spots here and there, but he still managed to pull it out.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want to talk about the ending of the match, I don't know if you had anything you already had set aside to talk about, but I really like the ending of the match in terms of the aftermath.
Oh yeah, aftermath. I was about to get into that because afterward we have Luger in the ring with Bret after the match. They were co-winners of the Royal Rumble, which has never happened in the history of the Royal Rumble. Technically, kind of almost happened at WrestleMania at the Royal Rumble 2005 with Cena and Batista, but where Vince McMahon infamously tore both quads, stomping his way to the ring, getting into the ring. But no, it was the only time they were co-winners of the Royal Rumble. They stare at each other for a second. Bret extends his hand. Luger and him shake hands. Piper and Hart shake hands. The faces kind of clear the locker room. Tatanka, 1, 2, 3 Kid, Razor Ramon, Bob Holly, Randy Savage, and the celebrities all come out to congratulate Bret Hart. They raise Bret on his shoulders as we're closing out WrestleMania. Gorilla Monsoon's also in there as well with McMahon and Pat Patterson in the ring. But the closing that close was, I think, what they don't do this at the end of WrestleManias ever anymore. They don't do that where they leave some kind of story open for post WrestleMania. So at the end of this, they have Owen standing on the ramp, staring at his brother, shaking his head as he celebrates his title win. That is so good. That is great storytelling. And that makes me want to watch something later on. That makes me want to find out what's going to happen.
Oh, definitely. Because the way they almost do it now is a lot of the time these days, WrestleMania is the end of storylines where everything ends, and then the Monday night after they start new. So not all, but most feuds end. But this one, like I said, perfect way to keep us interested to see what was going to happen next, or just that little moment there at the end.
Yeah, it was just a little small moment, but it felt so huge. And with the storytelling we started earlier on in the night with the Owen Bret match. Well, Owen now he's like, I should have a right to have a title match now because guess what? I just beat the champ. I technically beat the champ now. And This would lead to a WWF, I'm pretty sure a WWF Championship steel cage match at SummerSlam later on that year. So that storyline would go all the way towards a SummerSlam in 1994. But yeah, and that cage match, it's just as good, probably, if not better, than this Bret Owen match from WrestleMania 10. So we'll have to check that out sometime as well. But overall for this show, I think I'm going to give it a B. It gets a slight bump for me just because of the two matches, the Shawn Razor Ramon match and the Bret Hart Owen Hart opener. Because really, those are two all-time great matches in this WrestleMania. That's why I bump it up slightly to a B, because I was like sitting on teetering B minus B range, and I'm like, I'm gonna go with the B because these are two all-time great matches.
I also gave it a B, but I wasn't teetering on a B minus. I was more teetering on B plus, because the good matches that they have were good matches, great matches. Definitely some forgettable ones in there. The Bam Bigelow match, that squash match with Adam Bomb and Earthquake really did need to be on there. But definitely overall as a pay-per-view, definitely one of the better WrestleManias.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I thought it was well balanced because they knew booking wise they couldn't like have too many highs, too many lows. They kind of went up and down as the show went along. I thought they did a decent job of balancing out, but yeah, nothing really absolutely horrible other than maybe in my opinion, the Luger Yokozuna match that was completely forgettable on this show.
Yeah, which is a shame because it was part of it's Lex Luger and Yokozuna. You'd think they'd be able to do something just a little more, but wasn't the best.
No. But the more interesting thing is after this, so yeah, B grade for the show for me, and then a B grade from Jo for the WrestleMania 10. The interesting thing after this is I was looking at the show. I'm looking at the card and everything, and I'm like, it's like, oh my gosh, like about a year and a half later, a lot of these people are not even working for the company anymore.
That is true.
Because let me give you a little bit of a rundown. So Hogan, he'd start appearing for WCW in March of that year. So around that time, that's when he started appearing for WCW. Piper would join WCW in the fall of 1996. Randy Savage would jump over to WCW in late 1994. Luger would go to WCW in 1995, famously showing up on the debut episode of Monday Nitro. Hall and Nash would show up there in mid 1996. And you just look at it, it's like most of the guys on this card ended up in WCW. Alundra Blaze ended up with WCW in 1995, where she infamously dumped the WWF Women's title in the trash.
Iconic moments.
Yeah, that was immediate regret for her. She did not like that because I think Bischoff kind of coaxed her into it. I think she immediately regretted that moment, but it's just so weird at the time with that because almost like most of these people are gone, like we're gone from the company about a year and a half or two later.
Yeah, it's sad to think about because they put on these great matches at the biggest show for the company, and then just like that, they're gone.
Yeah, like Bret Hart was gone in 1990s. By 1997, about 3.5 years later, he's gone after the Montreal screw job. Yeah, it was just an interesting time because it was really after this show, it was kind of about 1995, 96, it was kind of a real turning point for WWE.
Definitely had some of their biggest challenges of that year with most of their talent leaving.
Yeah. They had to create new stars. They had to figure out a way to create new stars. They eventually got theirs in Mr. Stone Cold Steve Austin, who would become one of the biggest stars in wrestling history. But hope you all enjoyed that review of WrestleMania number 10. Glad Jeremy could join me on the show. We have lots of great stuff coming up. I'm trying to figure out what content we're going to do here soon. I have an idea of what I want to do. I'll relay more information to you later as I formulate these ideas in my head. But coming up, I think next week, I'll have a WrestleMania 21 review. I'll be joined by the Stranger Rings podcast. They're on Twitter and Instagram at Stranger Rings 1. Yes, that is Stranger Rings 1. Yeah, the Stranger Rings podcast. They'll be joining me on the show for a WrestleMania 21 review. So that'll be a lot of fun. I'm joining them for an episode this week. So I'll be recording with them coming up on Friday. This is being recorded on Thursday, not Friday, but I'll be recording with them on Saturday. I'll be recording a WrestleMania 19 review with them. And that WrestleMania has some pretty good matches in it. Chris Jericho, Shawn Michaels, also Brock Lesnar versus Kurt Angle. So some great stuff coming on both the Stranger Rings podcast and Sigdaddy's wrestling show here soon. Thank you again, Jeremy, for joining me on the show. Really glad we got an opportunity to watch this back, and looking forward to hopefully watching another WrestleMania before the real WrestleMania, the big WrestleMania, takes place here in a couple of weeks.
Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
You want to plug your social medias?
Yes. If anyone out there wants to give me a follow on Twitter and Instagram, because that's really all I have, it's at Jeremy Ordas, Ordas, last name. First name, how it sound.
All right. Then if you want to follow the podcast, make sure to follow the podcast at Sigdaddy Wrestle on Twitter and Facebook, Instagram, sigdaddy.wrestle. And make sure, if you like the podcast, make sure to leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Really enjoy getting feedback. And if you want to give me feedback, you can send me a DM on Twitter, like I said, at Sigdaddy Wrestle. And if you haven't already, make sure to tell your friends to subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Podbean, Spotify, the iHeartRadio app, Amazon Music. We're even on there too. So plenty of places to find the podcast and listen to it. Yep. Thank you again, Jeremy, for joining the show. But that's going to do it for me on the show. So for Jeremy and myself, this is Skylar Sigdaddy Sigmund signing off. Thanks for listening, and so long, everybody.